Good morning. Welcome to the Board of Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, December 5th, 2023. We'll start with introductions in the room. I'm Pat Malone, Commissioner.
Good morning, Zano Juro, Commissioner.
Nancy Wise, Commissioner.
Vance Carney, County Council.
Rachel McNally, County Administrator.
Senior Strategist.
Jesse Ott, Deputy Director, Natural Areas, Parks and Events.
Amanda Makepeace, Benton County Staff.
Ryan Beef, I'm with the City of Holden.
David Anderson, Sheriff's Office.
Eric Glass, Sheriff's Office. Corey Grogan, Benton County Public Information.
Ryan Lundy, Sheriff's Office.
Are there people online that want to introduce themselves this morning?
Hi, everyone. Rick Krager, Chief Financial Officer.
You're muted.
My apologies. I had the wrong microphone selected. Lacey Molell, Interim Executive Director of the Community Health Centers.
Good morning, April Holland, Interim Health Department Director.
You're very faint, April.
Thank you.
Good morning. All right. Are there any announcements this morning? Hearing none, we'll move on to review and approve our agenda. There is one change after comments from the public and before the work session. We will have the proclamation. Declaring December is National Rural Health Month in Benton County.
So we're gonna move up agenda item number 6.
Yes. Any other changes? If not, I'll consider the agenda approved as amended. Next up is comments from the public. And we have one person online, Richard Weber. But if you're speaking to the public hearing or exotic animal ordinance, we will be starting that 11 o'clock or slightly thereafter. So it would be appropriate for you to testify at that time. First name? Oh. Okay. So are there any comments from the public that don't apply to the public hearing that we're having at 11 o'clock? Hearing none, we will move on to what item 6.1, proclaiming December is National Rural Health Month in Benton County. Lacey Molell. Good morning.
Good morning. In recognition of the vital role that rural healthcare plays in our community and the ongoing efforts to improve the well-being of our rural residents, we, the Benton County Board of Commissioners, hereby declare and proclaim the following. Rural healthcare is the foundation of the well-being of our rural communities and essential for the prosperity of rural communities in Benton County. Access to quality healthcare is a fundamental right and not a privilege, and it's our responsibility to ensure that every resident of Benton County, regardless of their location, has the opportunity to receive affordable and high-quality medical services, access to insurance, and necessary prescription medications. Rural areas face unique health disparities, including issues related to hunger, diet-related diseases, and limited access to safe drinking water, further emphasizing the urgency of addressing these health inequities. It is our collective mission to foster and change progress and in rural healthcare by supporting initiatives aimed at preventing rural hospitals and improving access to emergency and outpatient care. We are dedicated to investing in the education and support of our rural clinicians and nurses, as well as promoting programs aimed at training rural healthcare providers to better serve our veterans and the underserved in our community. We recognize the importance of expanding telehealth services, as well as historic investments in rural broadband to enhance healthcare accessibility in remote areas. Now, therefore, we, the Benton County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim our unwavering support for rural healthcare in Benton County by recognizing the importance of National Rural Health Month and reaffirming our dedication to the health and well-being of our rural community.
All right, thank you. And I would entertain a motion.
I would move approval of proclamation number P 2023-021, proclaiming December 2023 as Rural Health Month in Benton County.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Well, thank you, Lacey, and glad we could accommodate your schedule.
Yes, thank you. Have a great day.
All right. Now we're back to our work session, 4.1, discuss supplemental budget 240601. Jenna M. Buell and Rick Krager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for accommodating my schedule. Lacey and I are here in Portland for the CHC Finance Conference. So appreciation for enabling me to join you virtually and present to you this morning. I think there is a presentation. I don't know if you're seeing it yet, that Erica can pull up for everyone. I believe it is in starts on page 17 of your current, excuse me, page 16 of your current agenda. Mr. Chairman, are you seeing the presentation yet?
They're working on it, Rick.
Okay, I'll go ahead and get started. Again, thank you for allowing us to present our budget supplement today. This is the first budget supplement for the current biennium. I think is typical, as in previous bienniums, a lot of this becomes a cleanup from some of the things that we were finding out during the adoption period, particularly things like the state legislative process. And also, as we all know, with all the capital projects that we have, estimates are changing. So we're just trying to get that all corrected in relation to the budget. So a lot of those things will be specific to that. But in terms of starting on page 17 of your packet, and again, I'll refer to that until the presentation comes up. We are looking at, with this proposal, a request of about 17.43 million increase, which represents a 3.6% increase to our adopted budget. This will bring us to approximately $503 million for the 2023-25 budget. Most of the significant changes, as I mentioned a moment ago, are specific to capital outlay transfers and reserves. And these are changes as it relates particularly to our capital projects and some of the completion dates. Obviously, you all know we've had some increased estimates related to scope changes and continued cost escalation for construction. And then obviously, last biennium, we were slower than anticipated in terms of our spending on many of these capital projects. And as a result, now you're seeing more of a carry forward that we have to make sure is planned out in the current budget. I do want to note that there are no FTE increases or changes in this budget supplemental. I think going forward, we are instituting a new process, particularly as we start to do what we are calling permanent finance changes and adjustments to FTE. So Jen and I will be speaking to that as we move forward in future supplements, just so that you're aware of any changes that we're doing from a budget neutral standpoint. But again, happy to say that there is no FTE increases or changes today. In our world, we of course always deal with funds. You've heard Jen talk a lot, and she can certainly give you a lot more information on this as you deem necessary. We work in a world of funds and a variety of funds. What we're seeing with this particular supplement is impact to 6 of our major funds. We do have an intergovernmental service fund that will be having a change in terms of shift from contingency to capital outlay, but that doesn't have a budgetary impact. So again, our general fund, relatively small impact that you see here of 113. Our ARPA dollars, about a $1.6 million adjustment. You can see clearly that for the big piece is going to be our budget development fund at $10.1 million. We also have our special grant fund around 2.4, and then finally our enterprise funds and our trust funds are the 2 primary funds. What I'm choosing to do here in terms of what you've seen in past presentations, as opposed to get into the technicalities of funds, is to give you more of a higher level, similar to what we did in the budget process, to talk about the real specific changes, what are driving those changes. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So again, starting at the top, what makes up this $17.4 million budget increase? First is about $2.6 million increase. This is related to our external fleet program. This is mostly driven because as you all know, with supply chains, we ordered a lot of vehicles last biennium, particularly on the external side, and those, with supply chains being slow, those didn't come in. So obviously we are acquiring those and purchasing those this biennium as opposed to last. All of these external fleets are, again, typically dollars that are paid to us for us to do the acquisition. So that's what that represents. In addition, I should mention there's also a shift with this of about $905,000 from our contingency to capital outlay, because in our internal service fund, which is specific to our own vehicles, we're experiencing that same issue, to where supply chains are slow, and now we're having to actually make those acquisitions from last biennium. But again, I want to reassure you, there's no budgetary impact. These are dollars that were committed from previous bienniums. It's just, again, slow spend has moved it into purchase for 23-25, and we have to make adjustments for that. The second piece is about $2.44 million. You've heard us talk about this. Is a new grant from the Oregon Housing Community Services Department. House Bill 5019 provided us dollars to help in terms of increasing emergency shelter and housing for the homelessness. Commissioner Oger was good to note in a conversation I was having with her before that you've heard us talk mostly about like $1.4 million that was coming directly to the county that we are still looking in terms of how that administered. There was also a specific grant that goes to Unity Shelter for this. And as part of that, they have the option to choose that money coming through the governmental organization. They preferred that we administer those dollars just because we have the relationships, we have the systems, and we can help with the cash flow. So this is the total amount of dollars. So it includes both the dollars that are going to go to Unity Shelter for a specific grant, a pass-through grant, essentially for them, as well as dollars that will be committed for us that's still in the works in terms of what that specific plan will be. The third element here is $475,000 for our Bazell Trust Fund. These are dollars that we did not budget in the last period due to, we typically we don't always know what the timber harvest schedule is going to be. But we are learning that there is some harvest going out there that's going to render us estimated $475,000. NAEP is targeting about 210 of that, and we're programming that here in this budget for a new parking area, heating systems and flooring for our education centers, some of the mold remediation and general maintenance that are necessary there out at the site. The remaining $265,000 of this budget increase would be operating contingency, and obviously could be decisions around the use of that money down the road, and we would have to come back for you, as we always do, to remove that from contingency as needed. The fourth area I want to mention, and it was called out, I made a little bit of mistake on this. The $163,000 increase is specific to dollars that have been targeted for emergency evacuation routes. I think you all are aware that we had state ARPA dollars that were dedicated for our sheep farm road access. That was one element. There were also a commitment from the Corvallis Rural Fire District to support that particular amount. It was actually $100,000. The remaining $63,100 that you see in this budget increase is just due to, again, the slower spend and increase in ending or beginning balance than what we anticipated. So a lot of that is just project cost that is carried into 23-25 as we move forward. Again, I want to give some credit to Commissioner Malone on this. He was instrumental in helping us to kind of work through getting the allocation for the Corvallis Rural Fire District. So a lot of appreciation for that and completion of that important project. It also has enabled us to focus a little bit more money on the Cardwell Hill project, as well as some of the planning dollars for additional routes. So again, thanks to Commissioner Ogerow for Commissioner Malone for your support on that. The next piece, relatively small area, about $132,000. This is specific to the Sheriff's Office. These are all, while it's in the general fund, these are all specific to restricted dollars that have some general fund tax money. This is specific to dollars that we've gotten through Homeland Security grant that is specific for some of the additional work that Brian and his staff are doing around emergency communication and providing regional incident emergency operations training. So that's about $113,000. And then we had a small amount that is dedicated dollars for what is in our DOJ Equitable Trust Sharing Trust Fund, and a higher balance for a beginning balance for that, which are again dollars that are just focused primarily for operations, and this has been programmed in materials and supplies. So relatively small piece there. Next slide, please. So this is the big one. So as you see here, this is 11.5. This is due to updated revenues and estimates for all of our capital projects for the courthouse and the district attorney's office, the crisis center, as well as the emergency operations center. And as I mentioned earlier, when we did the adopted budget, we didn't have the final results of the 2023 legislature. So there is an adjustment that you will see here that is needing to be made because of that. And I'll speak to that shortly. The first is the crisis center. So overall budget increase that we have for 23-25 is approximately $1.5 million. This is, again, due to some unanticipated environmental work. I think you've all been briefed on that, that we had not planned for. And then, of course, we had slower spending than expected in 21-23, which results in carry forward that we have to program for 23-25. Of important note, there has been additional resources that have come in to help with supporting that environmental work that I've mentioned. Again, want to give some shout out to the health department and Damien, especially in relation to advocating, and we got an additional $100,000 grant from IHN as well as a nearly a $1.2 million grant from the Oregon Housing Authority to help mitigate that additional environmental cost. So happy to say we are in budget for the Crisis Center, and with still a bit of contingency that is still in place. So everything is moving well. The total biennial budget at this point for the Crisis Center is $8.2 million. I do want to make a quick comment, as when I say total biennial budget, that is what we've got programmed. That is not the total project budget. It's typically larger than that because we've had spending in the previous biennium that would need to be accounted for. Just wanted to put that out there so that you weren't wondering if you see these numbers and not aligning with what you've heard in terms of total project cost. The second piece is the Emergency Operations Center. This is increased by $3.5 million. This is based on the decision-making that you all did back in September around the prioritization of $2.5 million of repurposing our ARPA and our CIP resources, as well as we got $1 million more than what we anticipated from the state legislature. You might recall that we had a programmed or an estimated amount for this biennium of $4 million. We actually ended up getting $5 million. So that basically makes that adjustment, and the total biennial budget that you see here for the EOC is 8.8. And I will say that does represent the total project cost because there were no expenditures in the previous biennium. So that is what we anticipate not to only to be the biennial budget, but the total project budget for the EOC. And then finally, the big one, the courthouse district attorney budget, that is increased by $15.6 million. Again, similarly, obviously you all know there's been delay in project spending, not moving as quickly as we had anticipated initially when we put the 23-25 budget. But we've also had some additional estimated costs due to the increased size of the courthouse. You're all aware that we've had a lot of work done over the summer and into the early fall with the state, and we have reached agreement in terms of the scope of that. And I'm happy to say we are moving forward quite rapidly in terms of that particular project and progressing nicely and aiming for a March construction start time. I should also mention, as you all well know, again, back to your September meeting, you also had given me that authority to make sure that we use reserve dollars as necessary from ARPA and CIP due to some of our increased cost that we were looking at. We also are enjoying much better interest rate returns on our county bonds. So those are additional dollars that we've been able to put into the project. And then again, the higher beginning fund balance. And that all equates to a biennial budget of about $76.9 million that we are looking to expend for this biennium in relation to that project. One thing that I didn't note on here, I think that's important to call out as it relates particularly to resources. This also assumes a 2024 state legislative increase to the state resources. So Jen and I did build this in. We have been working with the OJD. I think you all know that they have to get some additional allocation to be able to fully balance the budget for their side. Our dollars are all, our budget is in balance, but the state still needs to get an additional increase, of which we will help to advocate and support that as we move into the 2024 legislative session. And then finally, $9 million is, you all recall, the Homeless Navigation Center. We had that still baked into the budget. We didn't know what the final results were going to be at the time of adoption. Obviously, that was not approved during the 2023 state legislative process. And so this supplemental adjusts for that and backs that $9 million out. So in total, this is how that $11.59 million that you see at the top has all sort of come together. Next page, please. Finally, this is just real quick. I wanted to, again, in the spirit of how we have been presenting to you. We've, again, tried to give you more specifics in terms of the actions as opposed to getting all the technical details. Of course, we could always talk about the technical details, and Jen could give you lots of great information on that. But we want to sort of stay in the spirit, just giving you a quick insight there in the column that you see the 23-25 supplemental, what departments are actually impacted in their budget. So you see law enforcement there at the top at $132.4 million. And then the big piece, as I mentioned, the non-departmental, that's what typically myself and Jen and my team are usually responsible for managing. A lot of those, as a lot of it's the project budget. You see our NAPE budget is about 475. Public Works is 2.6. Again, that's all really around the fleet piece that I had mentioned earlier, both external and internal. And then finally, our health department, which is responsible for the administration of the OHC and Housing and Homelessness Grant. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that's my presentation. Again, Jen is in the room, and she certainly could answer some, or I should invite her as well if there's anything that I perhaps miss that she would like to cover. But that concludes my presentation, and we're happy to take any questions that you might have. Thanks.
Any questions for Rick or Jen at this point?
No, just one minor correction. The monies that came in for addressing the shortfall in the crisis center were from Oregon Health Authority and IHN, not Oregon Housing and Community Services. I think we have housing on our minds a lot of the time, so it's just a typo in the text. And,
My
listening.
apologies,
Yeah.
Commissioner. You are correct. That is the Health Authority. My apologies.
It's okay. I just want to make sure that our colleagues at the Health Authority feel acknowledged.
Rick got so excited with the money coming in that he forgot.
Yeah, I just can't help myself. I just can't help myself sometimes, Commissioner.
All right. Doesn't look like there's any other questions. Do you have any further information for us, Jen? At the
Colors,
neck.
there we go. I would just like to mention that Rick got really excited about money, and he didn't mean that the law enforcement received 132 million. He meant 132,000. Just throwing that out there. As much as I know the sheriff would love to hear that, that is not the case. And we look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks.
Millions, thousands, sometimes, these days, I apologize. Mr. Chairman, if I might just real quick, again, as always, want to recognize Jen. She's awesome. She's the real smart person behind all of this and does a lot of the technical ins and outs. So just a lot of appreciation for her work on this. She makes it all happen. So thank you.
Well, and I appreciate the kind of staying at the high level and giving us where the large dollar amounts are moving. It's helpful not to get too much detail.
Yeah, the presentation was good. Thank you. I would move to forward this item to the December 19th, 2023 board meeting for public hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Well done, finance crew.
Thank you, commissioners. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rick. All right, next up is our consent calendar. Lengthy consent calendar.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Consent calendar is approved. We've done the proclamation. Do we have any other business that we want to go over at this time?
I have an other, which is an email that we received from Greg Wolf yesterday at 4:07. It was titled Workforce Housing, and his title says he's from Housing Innovation Partnership, and it was saying, let us know if you don't want us to use your logo.
I was involved with this legislative effort last year, And we did endorse the proposed revolving loan fund that is being put forth once again in the short session. I would advocate that we continue to support this initiative, which will is designed to help developers that need that revolving loan as they're applying for government funds for low-income housing to be able to be effective in putting projects together.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I did not open the attachment because his email address was from a Gmail and I didn't recognize him and didn't want to open anything I shouldn't. So that's good to know.
Greg Wolf is formerly with the Association of Oregon Counties
Okay.
Solutions. So I worked with them for several years, and they were also present at the AOC conference and advocating for this particular package there.
Okay, perfect. So it sounds like we don't have to do anything and they will just continue doing what they're doing.
I could just drop them a line and say, sure, go ahead and use it.
Perfect.
Great. Anything, any other? If not, I will give a brief report here. I went to the Knife River training facility there in Albany last Thursday for a update on broadband, and it was well attended, worthwhile. Representative Pam Marsh kind of opened the meeting, and I guess I didn't realize how active she's been promoting broadband for the state. Got to kind of hear her motivation. She had a business on a kind of remote location outside of Ashland, and so knew firsthand that, you know, how essential broadband is for, in this case, business, but a good presentation. Rachel Maddock Hughes was on the panel, and I think we have her on contract to advance Benton County's efforts. It was good for me just to understand the different technologies and kind of pluses and minuses of fixed wireless versus fiber, and which is going on in our area as we speak. But glad I went and made some good contacts with folks from Alerica who have started fixed wireless in our area, and have expanded, and I think now do fiber when that's more appropriate. But I guess I think the only other commissioner there was Craig Pope from Polk County, and they kind of have a staff person that has advanced their broadband efforts in Polk County, and it sounded like they have made a serious commitment at the county level, and it's shown some good results. But just from the talk in the room, that was pretty unique for a county to support that kind of effort. I think that's what I have. Anything else? And we'll move on to, we need executive session.
I would suggest that we recess your regular meeting and move into the North Albany County Service District meeting.
Oh.
Ryan from Albany is here. He's stretching out Ansley.
Okay.
Ansley? I don't think that's a word. But that would allow you to move through that piece of business.
Okay, great. Appreciate that. So we will recess the regular board meeting and convene North Albany County Service District Governing Board. And would you come up to and make sure one of those microphones is on by pushing the black button on the base? Yep, you're on.
Hello. All right. So good morning. I'm Ryan Beath with the City of Albany. Back again on our annual water rate increase for the North Albany County Service District. This year, the City Council, Albany City Council voted or adopted a resolution for a 4% increase. And the water rates for the county service district changed the same as with the rates for the city. So I'm here today to request you approve the water rate increase of 4% for the North Albany County Service District. And that's it. Didn't even need the hourglass.
Any questions for Ryan?
I would move that we approve order number D 2023-093, increasing Albany County Service District water rates per the decision of Albany City Council.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. And so the way this works, the Albany City Council sets the rates for Albany, and then this is kind of a tag along to ensure uniform rates throughout the district.
Correct. Right.
Okay. Well, doesn't look like there's any other questions, so you can get back to work.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks.
I think, Chair, you need to kind of ask if there's any comments. I'm pretty sure we know the answer, but
Right.
the formality.
Are there, should have done that first, huh? Are there any comments from the public on the North Albany County Service District rate increase? I didn't think we had anybody hiding in the wings. Oh, okay, we've done that, and so I will close the North Albany County Service District Governing Board meeting. And now,
I think probably now, looks like you have staff here ready for an executive session. If you want to reconvene the regular meeting and then move into executive session, I believe Erica and John have to take care of some technical stuff first.
okay. I will reconvene the regular board meeting and then recess into executive session in several minutes here while we take care of some, why don't we take a 5-minute break, and then we will. All right, we're out of executive session, and we have opportunity for more questions, or I would entertain a motion at this time.
I move to authorize staff to enter into a letter of intent with Afrana regarding the acquisition of Hubert K. McBee Campground.
Second.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Appreciate the quick work and thoroughness of the research that's been done. So made this a fairly easy decision. So, and I guess the other nice thing about this time of year is there's probably not a lot of pressure on the campground, and so we have time to get our work done.
Yeah. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Is there any other business that we need to take care of at this time?
Nope, I think we have some folks who will be coming back for our 11 o'clock public hearing.
So I will recess the board meeting. We will come back in 20 minutes at 11 o'clock to a public hearing in the matter of regarding an amendment to Benton County Code, Chapter 9. So see you at 11 o'clock. All right, good morning. We are resuming our board meeting for December 5th. And I am opening the public hearing regarding the amendment to Benton County Code Chapter 9. So we will have staff come up and present your report.
Hi, I believe that we are circling back. Unfortunately, I was not at our last meeting when we discussed this, so I don't have top of mind memory exactly what happened, but I know that there were some changes made to the ordinance that we wanted to review
Could you get just a little closer to the microphone?
Sorry. I know that there were some changes that were suggested and that we have a new red line that we circulated and that I think that we had come to agreement on that. I'm just checking in. I'm not sure exactly what we're lining up to do today.
Well, I know that what happened last time was that the red line of the ordinance was not in the packet. And there was confusion about dates and notice to community about when this public hearing was going to take place. And so between the fact that the red line version was not in the packet and the confusion about dates, and we decided not to proceed at that time. Okay. So that's why we're back. I'm still a little confused about the multiplicity of versions of this ordinance that we have floating around, because the version in the packet had some errors in it. But yeah, take it away and to the best of your ability, tell us what we're doing.
The red line document that we have has been redlined many times. And so I think that there's some challenges. When Vance reached out, I went back and I actually couldn't find a version that had the errors that he had pointed out to me. But it was mostly changes that we had made earlier that hadn't tracked through. Specifically, there was the two areas that were in contention were both the areas of the animals that were listed, but there weren't really any changes about those, and then organizations that were exempt from the ordinance. And so inadvertently, the very first line of point A under number 2 under prohibitions, any facility accredited by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, World Association of Zoos and Aquariums, had been inadvertently struck from the last version, and that should have been left. And then the second point, B, should just simply read, B should read veterinary clinics or wildlife rescue and rehabilitation facilities, which are licensed or permitted by the state of Oregon.
I'm sorry, so I'm trying to follow along here. Could you repeat that and just kind of slow it down a little bit for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
The two changes were to re-add the Part A, any facility accredited by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, World Association of Zoos and Aquariums. That had been inadvertently struck, has been re-added. That's been consistent. I don't think that was a point we ever argued. I think it was just an admin error. And then Part B should read, the previous version was struck and should simply say veterinary clinics or wildlife rescue and rehabilitation facilities, which are licensed or permitted by the state of Oregon. And this was a change that was suggested by an outside community member you guys had discussed. And I think this was the one that was brought back as making those changes.
It was in the original, and it is in public comments that we've received. What's confusing to me is that the email most recent version we have has an ACBC lettering,
Yeah.
so it's a little bit confusing. And the two that have been added back in that were mistakenly struck were A and the first C.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I made the two changes that Vance suggested that were incorrect, and that's what I brought with me today. I thought that we had substantive changes from last time that we had received some public comment about
No,
making
the ma-
changes.
The main substantive change that we wanted to make from last time was with respect to the language regarding the rodeo language.
Mhm.
And yeah,
So I have a question. Is the version that is in the revised packet the correct version?
That is one heck of a loaded question.
We should know, we should be able to answer that question.
What I'm looking at right now in the revised packet, I'm looking on page 126 of the revised packet. Subsection 2 shows an A, B, C, D, E, and F. Those are the correct versions of this ordinance
Yes.
that is presented to the board. And just to clarify Commissioner Ogero's question, when you met on the 7th of November, the question was put forward, should subsection C be broken out such that what you see subsection D becomes a second subsection? That's the substantive change that Tommy's
Thank you for
referring
that
to. So
clarification.
what you see on page 126, C and D used to be one paragraph, one subsection. It's been broken out with an addition. If you go to the end of subsection D, it says this exemption applies to activities using livestock and domestic animals only. That is new language. And I believe that is
And that is the language that has changed since last time we were
Correct.
here. We've updated it, and then, yes, the document numbered incorrectly, and I didn't catch that, so I apologize. But the previous struck broken down into those two, C and D, as Vance outlined.
Oh, sure.
And Eric, it would be page 126 of the packet.
well, thank you for the clarification and for pointing out that there was a revised version of the packet, which I did not realize.
Well, and Vance, I guess while we're waiting, remember a discussion with you concerning how in the red line version, things got dropped that shouldn't have, and it has added to the confusion here. Could you?
I don't know. I made the jestful boast to staff yesterday that I should be called the IT guru. Now I'm regretting that comment because I can't tell you exactly what happened. What I surmise happened, because it's happened to me, when you use the track changes version of Word and you attempt to move components around, sometimes it'll delete them. And I'm thinking that might have happened with Tommy's version when she moved, separated out section new D. It likely inadvertently created deletion for what is A and B. So, and I know that at least one community member, Ms. Maron, pointed that out, and we found it yesterday. So I can't blame
formatting
it all
keeps
on the
resetting
software. I can
stuff,
say
yeah.
that sometimes it's difficult to maneuver through.
I think you should blame it on the software. Yes. But in our packet, like you say, on page 126, and there's pages beyond that, but what we have in front of us is the correct version.
It is, and again, your substantive changes is a new C and D, which are essentially the same as before, with a new added last sentence of subsection D.
Thank you. looks like we have that available online. Thanks, Erica.
Do you happen to have that motion in front of you? Could you share it with us?
Necessary explanations in Benton County Code 9.805, sections 4C and 4M. I think that's regarding type of animal. Delete assistance animals from Benton County Code 9.810-2B. And in the same paragraph, remove the possible loophole for exotic animal acts at rodeo or FFA events after discussion with NAPE staff and the Fair Board.
Thank you.
I think the point on 9.805 for, where is that? C, was just to delete lemon sharks because they're a shark. And that has been brought up a handful of times as just cleanup. It's not, you know, an urgent issue, but it's cleanup.
All right. Any more information from staff? Or
Can you clarify, Commissioner Ojo, sorry, were lemon sharks to be struck? This is the first I've heard anything about the lemon
It was
shark.
in
It's new to me.
the text of the motion at the last meeting. And yes, just because they are a shark. So they are already included in the statement that sharks, skates, and rays are on that exotic animals list.
So, and lemon shark does appear in the fixed version in the packet.
Correct. It
also
did not get
posted
corrected.
online. Okay.
All right. Anything further, Tommy, or any questions?
I don't have anything new, no.
All right. We will now go to public testimony, and we have 4 people signed up, 2 online, and I'll start with them. Richard Weber.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to testify regarding the proposed changes to the Benton County Ordinance prohibiting wild or exotic traveling animal acts. My comments were based on some of the earlier revisions, so if these have been addressed, please bear with me on that. But first, I'd like to thank the Benton County Commissioners for enacting the original ordinance. The points that are described within the legislative preamble summarize the key issues of animal welfare, cruelty, lack of effective oversight, promotion of wildlife trafficking, and public health and safety that this ordinance addresses. However, one important section of that original ordinance preamble regarding how traveling animal performances often bring people dangerously close to wild or exotic animals is missing from the preamble of the amended ordinance. The missing section from the original preamble should be restored. I fully support the spirit and scope of the original ordinance, and it is in the interest of Benton County residents that the spirit and scope of the ordinance remain intact. Now I'd like to address some of the proposed changes to the language of this ordinance. The original language of section 9.8102A had consisted of exemptions for facilities accredited by the AZA or WAZA and several recognized wildlife rehabilitation organizations. It appears the removal of the original text may have been made in error, and I would support that the original language be reinstated in whole. In section 9.8102B, a new category of exempted entities has been proposed for community rodeos and FFA-sponsored events. If our understanding of the scope of animals concerned with these events is mutually exclusive of the prohibited animals listed in this ordinance, then I question the need for providing these entities with a special exemption. To remedy this concern for all parties, however, I propose changing the sentence in the proposed language that reads, "This exemption applies to activities using livestock and domestic animals only," to "This exemption applies only to activities not using animals listed within section 9.8054. This wording will clarify what the intended limitations of this exemption are. In closing, I'd like to state again that the original spirit and scope of this ordinance must remain intact. There are many fine forms of entertainment, including animal-free circuses, that are available today that do not feature transportation of exotic animals and the host of attendant problems that these itinerant exhibitions bring. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. And let's see, next up. All right, yep. Next up, Eileen Stark.
Good
coming to
morning,
us
and thank you.
online.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. As you probably know, this ordinance is very similar to laws in effect in more than 150 cities and counties within 37 states. And 8 states have passed full bans or partial restrictions on the use of animals in traveling exhibits. I'd like to thank you for recognizing that Benton County residents want to maintain the scope and intent of the original ordinance. And there are just a few fairly minor changes that need to be made to maintain it. As Mr. Weber said, changing the language to clarify that the rodeo exemption does not apply to animals banned by the ordinance is essential. The terms livestock and domestic animals are really broad terms that aren't defined in the ordinance and could cause confusion. So simply modifying the language to say that the exemption applies only to activities that don't use the animals listed will remove any ambiguity. Please also reject suggested edits, such as the addition of certified to section 2A. Certified really means nothing, since facilities are either accredited and or licensed by institutions which have really strict standards and oversight, and no traveling show should be exempt. Also, it's important to note that the small traveling animal acts are no better than large ones. Animals trapped in traveling shows, no matter their size, are trained using cruel methods. They typically spend their entire lives traveling, sometimes almost incessantly, in severe confinement without even basic necessities, and they often pose threats to public health and safety. These shows are not educational, they don't assist in wildlife conservation, and our current federal and state laws do not adequately regulate them. There's basically no difference between a traveling wild animal act for entertainment and one for education when it comes to cruelty issues. So cruelty-free entertainment, including the growing number of very popular, lucrative, and amazing animal-free circuses is the answer. Cirque du Soleil, Circus Vargas, Bernardo Circus, and Circus Rose are just a few that come to Oregon. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I guess I'll ask if there's anybody else online that wishes to do a public comment here. If not, we'll go in the room. Next up is Arlene Merriams. Come up and make sure the microphone is on. And I've forgotten here, but we'll try to keep.
Can you hear me now?
To 3 minutes or less.
Okay, well, hello again. That was a nice little introduction there, some chaos. So first I want to thank you for rescheduling this first reading of the amendment as originally intended so that myself and others could participate fully in this public process. I did provide you with written comments by email with necessary edits. I hope you were all able to read that and that those can be incorporated. Some have already been mentioned, as you mentioned, correcting the deletions that had to do with exemptions. And as one of the previous comments noted, there, and I noted as well, one of the statements from the preamble regarding public safety is missing from the preamble. Not sure how that got removed. It was never discussed and it does not have a strikeout. It's just missing. So I provided that as attachment 1 of my comment letter. And you can also retrieve that from the original preamble. And then regarding the rodeo exemption, there was the proposal, or I did propose livestock as a way to clarify that. However, that does create some confusion, as we saw in other comments. And so rather than having to define livestock and to have the intent be simple and clean, as I proposed, also the exemption should just apply to activities not using animals listed in 9.805 paragraph 4. That would be the simplest and most straightforward way to support that intent. And by adopting the amendment, the amended ordinance, along with these edits that I suggest and others suggest, you do achieve the objective of making the ordinance easy to understand and enforce, which was where this all started, while retaining the original intent of the BOC, which is to end Benton County's role in perpetuating the suffering of wild animals and traveling animal acts. And I also just want to speak to a couple of items that continue to come up in your discussion and from others. I provided information last time supporting, validating the fact that there was never intention to ban horses or any other livestock. That was an editing error, not created by me. We tried to correct that error and it continued to stay in the original ordinance. So I want to put that topic to bed and not have to discuss it again. Second, you really need to look deeper at the work group process to understand its limitations. This continues to come up as the solution to the ordinance. However, the work group did not include anyone familiar with traveling wild animal acts or the species-specific needs and traumas or the numerous animal welfare issues of this industry, except for one reptile exhibitor who has an obvious bias. The 3 work group participants that I spoke with after those work group meetings, the Oregon Deputy DA for Animal Cruelty, the ODFW Wildlife Integrity Coordinator, and the Shintimini Wildlife Director, who I spoke with. I'll wrap it up. They only attended 2 meetings. They offered only minimum input because their area of expertise did not cover this discussion. And as explained to them, the focus of the group was to make the ordinance understandable and enforceable. That discussion, as I'm told, was very unorganized and did not address that intent. And they also said they did not offer opinion or support for the recommendation to repeal the ordinance and replace it with a permit program because it was outside their scope. But each commented to me that they did not see how that would work. So I just want to clarify this for the record because it continues to come up and it's important to get that right.
Okay.
So thank you very much for this amended proposal.
Okay. Next up, Trudy Overland. And the right-hand mic is on, if it doesn't matter.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. First of all, I wanted to address the issue that was brought up about the working group. The working group met more than 2 times, and the membership that attended those meetings actually attended most of those meetings. And the reason we came up with a separate alternative ordinance was based on the original assumption of the animal ordinance, which was to ban circuses and events like Take a Walk on the Wild Side. And then when the ordinance was drafted, it went way beyond that original scope. All parties to that working group were given an opportunity to review the alternative ordinance, the animal welfare ordinance, including the attorney from the state who actually made recommendations on its final copy. So I want that in the record. In addition to that, we have some concerns with the term like domestic animals and how that is being defined. There's a lot of animals that are on your undesirable list that have been domesticated in the United States, including camels that currently are used as domestic farm animals and are found in definitions of livestock. In addition to that, we wanted to put it on record that the Fair Board, when it was initially approached about an animal ordinance to ban circuses and take a walk on the wild side, did not have the authority to act on that and deferred it appropriately to the Board of Commissioners. And we believe that we were misrepresented in the fact that we didn't have any objection to this ordinance. We still believe that this ordinance is an overreach and goes beyond what is necessary. Defining animal cruelty just because an animal that you find undesirable is in an event doesn't necessarily make it cruel. We also want to object to some of the scientific studies. We found alternative scientific studies which we had provided to the commissioners. So that said, I don't think we need to extend this ordinance even further. It's already having an impact on our ability as a fairgrounds to do what our fairgrounds is required to do, and that is to maintain viable and be able to host events and support renters of that facility. Any additional push on this ordinance could make that even worse and allow other activities to go to other counties and object to even working in Benton County. We also feel like that there are and have been a lot of issues brought to our attention by constituents in Benton County that felt like they were not heard on this issue, including a conservation entity that is directly impacted by this ordinance and has been a longtime resident, also recognized educator for OMSI, and continues to do educational activities, not only in the state of Oregon, but in the states of Washington, Alaska, California, and others. So we object to additions without definitions. So if you're going to add livestock, it needs to be defined so that we don't run the risk of running counter to the ordinance. It is still our position that this should be repealed and replaced, but we do not see that happening currently. And so we just want to register our objections. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see, does staff have any response to the testimony?
Just real quick, just to wrap things up, you know, I've said this before in this room, but I think it's absolutely true that we all want the same thing. We all want the same thing. We want animals to be taken care of and not treated poorly or abused. We want 4-H, FFA, and the fairgrounds to thrive. I think we all want the same things. Where this ordinance has taken us has been a weird twisty turn, and I apologize for the admin errors in this latest round. But I think that we have something that is not currently going to harm the fairgrounds or our operations, and that does create some space and real specific guidelines and outlines our values in the county. I think the Fair Board has been incredibly cooperative during this process and helpful, and I want to appreciate them for the time that they've taken. It has been difficult to be in their shoes and to really advocate very specifically for what they believe in for the fair and to stand up for that in a time when they know that it could be viewed as being divisive. And I don't think the Fair Board or anyone in our fairgrounds community wants to be divisive. I think we want this place to thrive. So thank you for doing the things that you do to help make that happen. I think the ordinance is in a place that, at least from a staff perspective, it's understandable, enforceable, and we can live with it. And it falls within, I think, our 2040 goals and our values. You know, the devil is always in the details, and there's always going to be a little bit more devil to detail out. But I think we're at a pretty good place, would be my perspective.
All right, thank you.
I just wanted to address two things that were raised. One by Ms. Miriams and Ms. Overland, and one of the others online. I apologize for, I forgot which one. And that is the use in 9.810 subsection 2D as in dog of livestock and domestic animals. And the suggestion was to change that to the language that Ms. Mearns presented, which was that instead of using livestock and domestic animals, that we reference the list in 9.805 subsection 4. I think that makes a lot of sense. It makes this exemption tie specifically to the list of prohibited animals. So that's one item I think is worth considering for the board to make it clear, and it eliminates the concern over how do you define livestock and animals. The other point is, I know that two individuals referenced the deletion of the whereas provision from the ordinance. I know the board looked at that and asked that be removed. I don't remember if it was in the work session or if it was at November 7th.
It was in the work session. We presented that. Fair Board said, we think, there were, I think understandably, a lot of the preamble language wasn't in their liking, but this part felt particularly egregious and contentious and didn't seem like it was necessary. And so we had a conversation and I felt like folks agreed. And then that felt like, a compromise in terms of working towards a solution.
That is my recollection as well, that I'm much more interested in keeping the intent of the overall ordinance, and that this removing just one of the preamble elements doesn't weaken the intent of the overall ordinance. I'd rather preserve the language overall. And I concur with the change recommended to 9.8102B to drop the language regarding livestock and domestic animals and just to refer to the list in 9.8054. I think that does clean up that potentially very fuzzy definitional issue of what is a domestic animal.
Agreed. That will help staff clarify, to make a call in the moment. Is this a domestic animal or do we just look at the list? The list is easier.
Thank you. Thank you to staff that's worked on this. Thank you to the community, our community members, the Fair Board, and everyone who has given us their feedback. It is helpful. I understand that this ordinance has been used in many other cities and counties, but our community is unique and we do need to balance our community members and community groups, the various opinions and values held. So my intent in moving forward with this was balancing diverse values while maintaining the intent and spirit of this original ordinance and making the ordinance transparent and more easily understood. I think looking back, where we got into some trouble was when we directed the Fair Board to take a stab at a change. And if I'm remembering correctly, Commissioner Ojero was on vacation at that time. And so Commissioner Malone and I made that direction. And I do appreciate all the work that the Fair Board and the group had done in coming up with another option. When I saw that second option, I just thought to myself, well, this isn't exactly what I had in mind. And Commissioner Ojero had said, I'm back from vacation and that's not what I would like. And so we sort of pivoted. So I do apologize to the Fair Board and the working group for sort of sending them down one track and then, not accepting what they came back with. I do think though that the changes that we have in front of us are good and serve our community well. I do want to say too, though, the frustrating part in all of this for me has been the he said, she said back and forth, which I believe is unnecessary. As Tommy has stated, we all want the same thing, which is to properly care for animals and avoid animal abuse. And we have spent way too much time hearing about how one side is the bad guy, no, the other side is the bad guy. And that does not help anybody. In the future, I prefer to just stick to the facts and stick to the vision and what we're trying to accomplish. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I was going to mention, appreciated the work group's effort, and we still have that work that we can refer to. This, I would second the notion of we spent a lot of time on this. There was some mention of easy to understand. I don't think, especially starting out with Latin, that this was intended to be easy to understand. And I would second the notion of that this is like something that was written by the Animal Defenders International out of LA and is passing it around the country. And I think we've made some progress in making it understandable. But I think of the Stingray event a few years ago, and I think the fair folks talked to Vance, are we okay? And his Latin was a little rusty, and that a couple days before the fair opened, Stingray show up and so, oh, nope, you can't be in Benton County. And I would point out that the animal rights folks that got that event or exhibit moved from the fair, I don't think did much to help out. Well, now we've got these stingrays. What do we do with them? They were planning on getting hooked up at the fairgrounds, couldn't do that. And it's as far as I know, it was our local folks that take care of animals on a regular basis that figured out Plan B and how to keep the stingrays healthy while the owner figures out Plan B. But I hope this version now with English for what animals we're talking about is understandable. But I would second the notion we have spent a lot of time on this, and I haven't met anybody that wants to be mean to animals. And we are all, I think we're all have the same goal. So hopefully moving forward, we can work together. So looks like there's no more testimony. I will, what's that? Oh, sure. Yep, please, and tell us who you are. Sorry, I saw you there, but I was just going off the people.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Craig Hendrickson, and I'm on the Fair Board. And I just had a couple of questions about the process. So are we able to take testimony from outside of residency of Benton County? Is that part of this process?
You've already done that.
Okay, no, that's just I'm asking. You can take testimony from people that don't actually reside here with their opinions and stuff.
Sure.
I would answer that and say yes, and I weight their input accordingly.
Wait there, okay.
That's me as one commissioner.
Yeah, so that's just one of my main concerns is with moving forward with everything that we do. If it's going to affect the people in this county, then it should be people that reside in the county that has the most weighted say on those things, not outside entities like PETA and all these other big groups, like you said, from LA that are coming in to push this stuff through. And then my other question is If we pass this through, Alligators is listed on this. We have a resident that lives here in Benton County. What are you all trying to do with him? Force him to move or move his business out of the county because he has those animals that are listed on this list that he uses for traveling educational things?
So he's allowed to own those. He's just not allowed to display them in Benton County at an event.
Okay, so then if he had a show within city limits, that's as far as what the city limits is. So like Philomath City or a city of Monroe or Corvallis, he could do that. It just wouldn't be essentially at the fairgrounds or on Benton County specific property.
Yes, this ordinance only applies within the unincorporated area of Benton County.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I guess I should ask, again, is there any one else that wishes to testify at this point? If not, I'll close the record and the board will deliberate and make a decision.
Sorry, I think we got ahead of ourselves and already deliberated a little bit, so just move that up here.
In terms of deliberation, I'm at this point fine with the version of the ordinance that is in the packet with the additional changes going back to the last meeting of dropping lemon sharks and making the change to 9.8102B to drop the reference to livestock and domestic animals and instead substitute the reference to 9.8054.
And that was a motion.
Before you make that motion, I'm going to ask if instead of making a motion and do a first reading today, we come back with a red line that shows the changes so we all know exactly what's in this doggone ordinance and we don't have to do this again.
I would be happy to see that and have a very clean version so we know exactly what we're approving.
Yeah, I agree. There's enough confusion going around that I think cleaning this up, I think we're down to relatively minor changes, but I think it would be helpful that everybody is on the same page.
Would we need to have another public hearing or does this suffice?
We would need to continue this public hearing until the night, well, we could do it next week, whichever, to another meeting, at which point we will present the red line and the clean version for you to see exactly what you would be voting on to make sure we all understand that it's correct.
I would very much appreciate that. Thank you.
And we have two options. A week from today, December 12th is goal setting. We want to do this at goal setting or postpone it till the 19th, which is our next regular board meeting.
I would prefer to do it on the regular board meeting rather than on goal setting.
So you'll need to continue the meeting until 11 o'clock on December 19th, at which point you'll resume deliberations on the red line version based on what you have testimony and information you received today. And you don't need a motion for that. I was doing that, Erica, for your benefit.
Well, I will repeat that just for the record. We will continue this hearing Tuesday, December 19th, which is our next regularly scheduled board meeting. And
Clarifying question, real quick, clarifying question. So the most recent red line minus the deduction of lemon sharks is what we want to produce a clean version of. So it's the one they have, but just minus lemon sharks, but we'll clean it up and make sure that whatever formatting stuff is, but that's where we're at.
And the change to 9.8102B.
Yes.
Which is now D.
Yes.
To D.
Yes, as in the current red line, but we just need to be reordered.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So maybe this is just one suggestion. The proposed motion that Commissioner Ojo made is on the record. So we have it there for staff to reference. And if we could send that to both of them, I think that would be helpful.
All right, I will close the public hearing. Yes.
Want to see what the final version is that's going to be voted on before it gets voted on?
Absolutely. That's the reason for the delay, is so that we know what we're talking about, because there's between kind of edits that went awry and a couple modest changes that but we should be able to get that out this week. Okay. Now I will close the public hearing and resume our regular board meeting under other. Is there any other business that we need to attend to at this time? Deafening silence. Meeting adjourned.